Steam Deck versus Switch 2, which is better? Let's talk price points. Steam Deck has 3 major price points sold by Steam right now. For $399 you can get the 256GB LCD model. At $549 you can get the 512 OLED model. And for a whopping $649 you'll get the 1TB OLED model. What it doesn't tell you in the description though is that if you buy the 1TB model, which I have here, you actually get the glare-proof screen. It's basically a matte screen instead of a regular glossy screen. And for the Switch 2, you're able to pick one of these up for $449. I only used the one price point for the Switch 2 because for the other price points, it just comes with the game and it doesn't change anything about the console itself. So I felt like it was a fair assessment to compare the one price against the 3 prices of Steam Deck. I would say the $399 Steam Deck is pretty comparable with the Switch 2 on a surface level. They both have LCD screens and they both have 256GB, but the Steam Deck does come in at $150 cheaper. Now if you look deeper into the hardware, you'll see that this model of the Steam Deck only has a 60Hz refresh rate, compared to the Switch 2's 120Hz refresh rate. If that's something that matters to you, then maybe you'll want to pick up the Switch 2, because even the higher end models of the Steam Deck only have about a 90Hz refresh rate. And if you really want something with even more power, the Switch 2 has the option to dock it and it becomes a console more comparable to a PS5. But comparing the Switch 2 to the 1TB model of the Steam Deck, you'll see that the 1TB model has an OLED screen, whereas the Switch 2 only has an LCD screen. I think for most people this won't matter very much, but I personally prefer the Steam Deck's OLED screen over the Switch 2's LCD screen. And I don't see why the Switch 2 doesn't have it when the Switch already had an OLED model. I think it is important to note though that the Switch 2 does have about a ½ an inch bigger screen and shows off an impressive 1080p compared to the Steam Deck's kinda strange 800p. Let's talk comfortability. I've heard a lot of people complain that playing the Steam Deck for more than a couple hours makes their wrists hurt. The Switch 2 isn't much lighter, but I haven't heard anyone make this complaint about the Switch 2 yet. I personally haven't had this problem, but I think it's important to consider before you make a purchase. Now where I have run into trouble is in my neck. It was hurting a few weeks ago because I was looking down too much to play my devices, and I just have to remember to look up and hold my devices up when I'm using them. Now on the flip side, I think that the Switch 2 doesn't have enough weight to it. I think that the Joy-Cons need more curve and something to grip onto here. I think that the Switch 2 is too thin and flimsy, and honestly I just prefer how the Steam Deck feels in my hands. So the biggest deciding factor to whether you'll get the Switch 2 or the Steam Deck is probably going to be what games you can play on each device. In my opinion, if you want to play Nintendo games, then you probably weren't going to buy anything other than the Switch 2 to begin with. But if you're more worried about playing a large library of games and be able to get great deals on games while you're building that library, then maybe you should pick up a Steam Deck. Steam constantly has games on sale. And if you're not too worried about playing Nintendo games, the Nintendo shop doesn't really have that great of sales all that often. And I feel like the Steam Deck is just better for playing lots of different games. At the end of the day, I've given a lot of pros and cons for each side, and it's up to you to decide which one is best for you. What do you really care about more? Is it the refresh rate, the display, or the games itself? Either way, I hope you guys have fun, keep gaming, and make sure to like and subscribe.